I love coffee, and I think the rest of the world loves coffee just as much as I do, considering the fact that it is one of the most traded commodities in the world, and we drink up to 300 tons of it per day. That's right, 300 tons a day. I'm not joking. That's enough for a cup of joe for every person living on this planet. The largest buyer of coffee, the United States of America, has to import nearly all of its coffee since the coffee trees which the beans are harvested from only grow at commercial levels in an area known as the Coffee Belt between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. The only state in the Coffee Belt is Hawaii. However, the only reason why the United States has to import so much coffee is because of its population. The most enthusiastic coffee drinkers and most per capita are located in Finland, where they drink 3 times the amount of coffee compared to Americans, and they have to import all of their coffee from the coffee belt. The coffee bean is actually a seed of the fruit of the coffee tree. In order to grow the seed, a plant grows a flower, and then bees aid in the pollination of the flower. Once the flower is pollinated, the flower grows berries containing the coffee seeds. Once the fruit ripens, it is picked and separated from its seed. The coffee bean is extracted when the fruit is a bright carotenoid red. The only issue here is that unlike more cooperative commercial plants, the coffee berries ripen at different times, so workers either have to tediously pick the ripe berries or pick all of the berries and sort them by machine by ripeness. Once they are picked, the berries are separated from the beans, and the beans are roasted, crushed, then submerged in water to release the precious caffeine. The tree creates the caffeine, a bitter white alkaloid, by combining, from what research has shown, 3 main nucleotides: adenosine monophosphate, guanosine monophosphate, and inosinic acid. There are different pathways these substances can take to create caffeine in plants, but some of them are not confirmed. These 3 nucleotides create the backbone of caffeine, xanthine. Then the xanthine becomes methylated, meaning that a methyl group is added to it to become the substance known as 7-methylxanthine. The 7-methylxanthine then undergoes additional methylation, and a ribose is removed and it becomes 7-methylxanthine. The 7-methylxanthine eventually becomes theobromine. Both of these substances are created when an enzyme called caffeine synthase catalyzes a reaction which turns the 7-methylxanthine into theobromine, which ultimately turns into the beautiful caffeine I know and now it's the caffeine I know and love. This caffeine is found throughout the coffee plant. There's a reason why caffeine is found throughout the plant. It wasn't created so that humans could kill off its offspring for caffeine high. Caffeine is a natural insecticide, paralyzing and killing the bugs that chomp on the tree. Whether or not the bugs go out while experiencing a caffeine high of epic proportions is unknown. Though caffeine is poisonous, it's designed to be lethal to bugs, not humans. This is the reason why it's nearly impossible to die from drinking a ton of coffee. But if you really must know, to find the amount of caffeine that will be lethal enough to have a 50% chance of killing a human being, take the human being's mass in kilograms and multiply it by 150 milligrams. So, to poison a 90-kilogram human being, you would need to consume 13,500 milligrams of caffeine, or drink about 120 cups of coffee to have a 50% chance of killing that human being. Or you can go to this website and find out how much you need to consume of a specific brand of caffeinated drink in order to die. According to this calculator, it would take about 82 cups of coffee to kill me. That's a lot of coffee, so it's no wonder why there are no recorded deaths of people dying from caffeine due to drinking excess coffee. There are recorded human deaths from the consumption of excess caffeine, however, but those statistics are about crazy people who take the drug in its purest available commercial form, pills. Caffeine can be found in multiple different forms in our everyday lives. It's found in varying amounts in coffee, tea, energy drinks, sodas, chocolate bars, and what the crazy people take, pills. There are even caffeinated beef jerky products, but I have yet to find any in our local 7-Eleven. Your average 16-ounce iced coffee from Starbucks contains 165 milligrams of caffeine, and Dragonwell green tea from Teavana has about 16 to 25 milligrams of caffeine per serving, depending on how strong you like it. Red Bull gives you wings, contains 80 milligrams of the white alkaloid, and Coca-Cola has about 32 milligrams of caffeine. Even decaf coffee has some caffeine in it, about 2 to 5 milligrams. Speaking of decaf coffee is created when most of the caffeine in the coffee bean is separated from the bean. There are 3 common methods used to achieve decaf coffee: natural, direct, and water. The natural process uses ethyl acetate, the byproduct of ripening fruits and vegetables, and water to draw out the caffeine physically. The direct process has a decaffeinating agent remove the caffeine from the bean. There are multiple different decaffeinating agents available, one of which is methylene chloride, which Green Mountain Coffee uses. The water process adds hot water to the beans to remove the caffeine. When the caffeine is removed, however, it removes essential oils and flavors from the coffee bean. So the water is then sent through a carbon filter that removes the caffeine molecules but leaves behind the essential oils and flavors. The beans are then allowed to reabsorb the water, oils, and flavors. The leftover caffeine that was filtered out is then sold to the pharmaceutical industry to be made into pills. However, these processes aren't perfect, which is why decaf coffee still has some caffeine in it. There's a similar process used when creating instant coffee. Crushed coffee beans are soaked in water, releasing flavors, oils, and the caffeine into the water, making regular coffee. Then, the water is boiled out, leaving a dry concentrate behind. This process, however, ruins the coffee flavor, which is why coffee hipsters hate instant coffee. Caffeine is not the actual substance that gives you that quote-unquote caffeine high. It gets metabolized in the liver, and the three methyl groups on the caffeine molecule either detach or stay onto the molecule, which ends up becoming either theobromine, paraxanthine, or theophylline. Theobromine increases the flow of oxygen and nutrients to the brain. Paraxanthine increases the body's athletic performance by increasing the rate of fat breakdown for muscle activity, and theophylline increases your heart rate and concentration. Caffeine is the most consumed psychoactive drug in the world, and for good reason. It helps people stay awake when we need to finish projects and get through that boring calligraphy class. It keeps us awake by being like a ninja. Its structure is very similar to another substance in our brains called adenosine. Adenosine bonds to receptor cells in the brain, which has a calming effect on the central nervous system, making us feel sleepy. The caffeine daughters, as I will call them, block those receptors. The caffeine daughters stimulate the nervous system, increasing blood pressure, heart rate, delaying fatigue, and increasing alertness. Since the caffeine daughters block the adenosine receptors, the pituitary gland releases adrenaline, giving you that rush of energy that comes with drinking coffee. The effects of caffeine peak around 30 minutes after consumption, and then the caffeine itself has a half-life of about 6 hours. This is why at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon at most offices, people start drinking a second cup of coffee since they are feeling half the effects of the caffeine they had consumed earlier in the day. This raises the question of whether or not caffeine is addictive, and the answer to that is yes and no. Caffeine can cause some physical dependence, so that going cold turkey, you might get some awful headache. After a few days though, those headaches will go away. But why would you even want to stop drinking coffee? It increases concentration, decreases fatigue, and gives you better memory while releasing dopamine and stopping headaches. And these are actual effects replicable in a lab and research. Speaking of research, in 1819, caffeine was discovered by German chemist Nicholas Wagner. I'm kidding. Caffeine was discovered by German scientist Friedrich Ferdinand Runge. Some other French scientists also isolated the caffeine molecule later. Pierre-Jean Robequet, Pierre-Joseph Pelletier, Joseph Bien-Aimé Caventou. In 1897, German chemist Hermann Emil Fischer discovered the structural formula for caffeine, for which he was given a Nobel Prize. There are multiple people involved with current caffeine research. One paper is from the scientists from the Center for Behavior and Evolution explaining how the caffeine in floral nectar enhances a pollinator's memory of reward. Another person involved with current caffeine research is Dr. Jennifer Temple at the University of Buffalo, where her research has revealed that males and females react to caffeine differently after puberty. In addition to the awesome effects of drinking coffee as mentioned before, there are other health benefits. The consumption of coffee in healthy humans can help prevent cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, and Parkinson's. Caffeine can even help get rid of migraines, but the amount required and how it should be consumed is uncomfortable. Moving right along. Fun quiz time. Where did coffee originate? Ethiopia, the United States, or Russia? If you chose Ethiopia, you win, but there's no prize. Sorry. A tale in Ethiopia says that a goat herder was in the mountains on his daily walk with his goats. At around sunset, he called for his goats with loot as he usually did. When they did not show up, the goat herder searched for them and found them creating a ruckus and eating red berries from a tree that he had never seen before. He decided to try the red berries. He then experienced a burst of energy and brought the coffee berries back to his village. Whether or not this tale is true is unknown, but coffee did originate in Ethiopia. Soon, traders from the Middle East came and discovered the potent drink and brought some berries back to plant. Coffee houses then sprung up around the Middle East, and this created a new environment where people of all walks of life could gather and drink awesome coffee. Though I don't think that goats could have walked into them too. Europeans then discovered the bean when a sultan tried to conquer the city of Vienna. However, the soldiers failed to take over Vienna and left their coffee beans behind in Europe. The Europeans had no idea what the weird coffee was, so they started burning it. However, a Pole by the name of Franz Georg Kolschitsky recognized the smell of coffee, having lived in the Middle East and visited coffee shops there before. He ordered the soldiers burning the coffee to stop burning it and took the coffee beans, roasted them, and opened up a coffee house in Vienna called the Blue Bottle, which is still open today. Before, in the 1600s, Europeans were drinking more beer and gin than water. But after the introduction of coffee and tea into their society, people started consuming a stimulant rather than a depressant, which is probably why this started an era of great intellectual advancements. Ben Franklin reportedly loved his coffee, and apparently Teddy Roosevelt drank a gallon of coffee every day. And they both loved it for the same reason modern workers and students do. Coffee and the caffeine that's in it is essential for concentrating when you need to finish reports, and if you're anything like my brother, get through med school. Coffee's influence has spread throughout the world, where coffee shops with good baristas are renowned, and going on a coffee date is a social norm. So, now that the modern world runs on coffee, grab a cappuccino, or depending on the weather, an iced coffee, and get to work. Conclusion: coffee for the win. So, coffee, will you marry me? Contact me here or click on one of these annotations.